We're good? All right, good. Welcome, everybody, to tonight's City of Tumwater Planning Commission meeting for our first meeting of the new year. It's Tuesday, January 13th, 2026. It's just past 7 p.m., and we're called to order. We'll start with our roll call. Commissioner Edwards.
Here.
Commissioner Kirkpatrick is excused. Commissioner Kotek.
Present.
Great. Commissioner Nelson. Here. Vice Chair Staff.
Here.
And me, Commissioner Robbins. Welcome, everybody. Do we have any changes to the agenda tonight that we need to consider? Look around. All right, we're good to go. Let's go to the fourth item of business, our approval of a couple of sets of minutes. Any comments, revisions, a motion?
I move to approve the minutes of May 27th and December 9th, 2025.
I will second that.
All right, that was Commissioner Nelson and Vice Chair Staff moving and then seconding the approval of both sets of our minutes for May 27th and December 9th, 2025. Any further discussion? All right, everybody in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, did someone have a question you wanted to raise?
I think there might have been.
Commissioner Kotek, did you have a point you wanted to raise on the minutes?
I do not have anything. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Okay, thought I heard somebody. Okay, everybody in favor of approving both sets of minutes tonight, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Sounds like it's unanimous. The minutes are approved. Any commissioner reports you want to mention? Okay. The deputy director's report.
Yeah, I do have a few.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. One is I sent all of you an email inviting you to one-on-ones. If you have time, if you can reply, let me know time preferences. This is informal chat. So I can hear from you, get to know you, how long you've been here, Tumwater, what you're excited about, what we can do to support you better. I think Elizabeth already went through it, so she can tell you.
It's okay, right?
And I'll be there tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Brandon tomorrow, and I've already met with him. Yeah, so good. And then we were just talking before that we have one vacancy on the Planning Commission that the new mayor will be filling, so we just don't know when, but we're waiting to hear from her. And we have one member out for undetermined length of time, so that means to have a quorum, we need at least 4. So just be mindful, try not to miss if you don't have to, because we can't meet at all. We can't run a meeting without a quorum. And if you, when Jess reaches out to you, and I think she's trying to do it Thursday before the Tuesday, if you can reply by Friday, that way we're not kind of in a panic on Monday and Tuesday trying to figure out if we have a quorum. That will help her in there. But we understand sometimes you can't do that. But when you can, try to be within 24 hours if you can. So next week we do have a preliminary docket item, which we need to have the PC Planning Commission take an action to forward to the General Government Council. And so if we can't miss that, because that will mess up the successive chain of a chain impact. So next week, really important to have at least 4 for our quorum. So we have an action item there.
So you mean on the 27th?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, I said next week, but I meant the 27th. Thank you.
Okay.
And then let's see. There's a memo in your packet. It's something that you get annually from the Attorney General's office describing how the city safeguards itself from unconstitutional takings and violating due process. It's just something to be aware of. The city has kind of steps in process when they're reviewing our work to make sure that we don't do that. So it's just something to be mindful of. And if you have any questions about that.
I was just going to quickly ask, is this I just don't remember if we've seen this before, and it's recurring, regular, or did something trigger it?
It's recurring annually. The Attorney General issues this, and so we're just sharing it. One of the requirements that they have is to share it.
Got it.
It's because you guys are in the, you have a legislative process, so just be aware.
Yeah, got it.
And that might be all I have. Yeah.
Okay, good deal. Let's move on to our public comment. We have a member of the public here wishing to address the commission.
Sure.
If you could just tell us your name and if you're affiliated with any entity.
Absolutely. It's just an introduction. So my name is Chris Lester. Sorry. I'm Government Affairs
So do
Director.
you want to maybe come sit so we pick up on the microphone, or do you want to join? Yeah, that way we can get your voice. Sorry, make you like sit with us.
All right.
That way we get the microphone.
Sure,
Cool.
sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. Stay or go?
You can sit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Please join us.
We're really all right. We're not going to bite.
My name is Chris Lester. I am a Government Affairs Director with the Thurston County Realtors Association, association that we are here to be of help and service to the city of Tumwater regarding to all things housing. And I've been in this position for 3 or 4 years. So, yeah, we're just here to help. And I've worked with Erica and Dana and Brad for those years and reaching out and being a community partner. So, and I attend the ones that I can attend in person. If not, I'm on as the other end of the screen there. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for taking the
Yeah, we
time to be
appreciate
here. And we do know that you're sometimes out there in Zoom land.
Yep.
So thank you.
Good.
All right.
I'll just pass this card down.
Sure.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you.
Do we have any other folks online? Can you tell? Using for always there's a little glare and they're very small. I don't. Okay.
Yeah, the 0 attendees and the 4 panelists that are already.
Got it. Okay. Super. All right. Then let's move on to business item number 8, the Urban Forestry Code updates. And I guess it's Dana.
Yeah.
Yay, go.
I'll share screen.
Also, we should just introduce Alyssa.
Okay. Staff person, Alyssa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, we're really grateful to have with us tonight Alyssa Jones-Wood, who's a sustainability manager at City of Tumwater, and she's in the Water Resources and Sustainability Department. And so our work cross-sections with her quite a bit, and many of you have had presentations from her and have heard her talk about the other initiatives that she is forwarding for the council at the city. So we are glad to partner with her on the urban forestry code amendments. Yeah, thank you for being here tonight, Alyssa. She also, another part of, excuse me, let me just pull this up so I'm not speaking as my back is turned. And go to slideshow. Yeah. So another, Alyssa's, in Alyssa's department, another one of the staff people that is very integrated into the urban forestry code updates is our new sorry, I want to get it right, his title, arborist. Is it urban arborist or just city
Urban Forester. Brian
Urban
Coughlin.
Forester, thank you. Brian Coughlin. So he's someone that we use for technical expertise, and he's also our city staff who reviews our permits or development permits that come in that have to do with ground clearing and any tree removals. And so he sees a lot of what happens and how we can potentially make our code clearer and follow the goals that are set out that we want to achieve through this update. So yes, good evening, and thank you so much, Chair, for the introduction and bringing this code forward. And it is, we're really excited about it because it's been on pause for a while, and we'll get into the history a little bit. But it has been on the city's work program for a number of years, since 2018. Some of these codes were identified, and then you know, just taking a more holistic look, just the council decided that we needed the urban forestry management program urban forestry management plan. So then in 2021, the plan was adopted, and it identified these codes as one of the pieces in this holistic view that needed to be adopted. So we started and got funding in 2022, and the grant funding was from Department of Natural Resources, and it was a urban and community forest grant process, and Alyssa actually was awarded the grant. She wrote it and got it for us to do the work. That's how Lock and Keisha's been with this, so it's definitely something we're really relying on her knowledge too going forward. So in 2022, got funding, and then started developing and working on the code in 2022, a little later that year, and started the public engagement. So I'll talk a little bit more specifically about what we heard in the public engagement. And since I'm new and all this happened before I joined staff, I'm really relying on staff or the commissioners that were here to be my ears and correct me. So please let me know if some of the things, if this isn't the flavor that you remember us going in, and if this is feeling a little off course. So from 2023, we were working on the code with a consultant, and then the state legislation passed a bill that would institute the wildland urban interface building codes, and only selections of it, and those selections would have a great impact on how we have to implement code, because we would need to adopt them. So looking at that, and then looking at the state legislature and some maps that were presented from the Department of Natural Resources, we were looking at the whole piece and worked with the State Building Code Council. And through their review of the State Building Code Council, the code was repealed, so it's not in effect at the moment. And at that level, the State Building Code Council is working with the legislature still, trying to figure out a solution and trying to make this code work across the state. In the meantime, we've been on pause. So we want to make sure that we're doing, since 2018, this code has been waiting. And then through the Urban Forest Management Plan, and it's not we as staff, but the council prioritized this work in the 2025 work program for long-range planning. And in that, we started this work in November. So we took up the mantle, looked at the previous work that had been done, and looked at, okay, what is it going to take to lift off the ground? What's our general timeline going to be like? Are we going to need help with this? What level of help do we need? And just really dug into what that plan is going to look like. So this is the plan moving forward. I've got too many computers going on here. So like I said before, the public comment was really about 6 sections, and this is not very handy to look at with all of our things going on here. So I'm going to see if I can bump this down. Oh, yay, that's better. So I collapsed what we heard into 6 categories, and so I'm going to summarize those 6 categories and tell you a little bit more about each of these categories and what it means and what we heard in the public engagement we did. So in terms of tree selection and growth and maintenance, it was about the right species, making sure maples and gums weren't there, making sure we're protecting large trees, and then making sure we have the proper care and maintenance plans, and then who is doing the care and maintenance and lining those things out, making sure that's really clear. So for peripheral impacts, it was about stormwater management and making sure climate mitigation is considered and conservation benefits, and then the interactions with utilities. For flexible yet clear and protective codes, that was really about simplifying that permitting process to make it something that people weren't inhibited by, right? That they were willing to engage with that process. And then stronger tree retention and replacement requirements were also part of that discussion. So and then balance between between vegetation and other land uses. That really talks about the balance of affordable housing and how we're required to provide certain land for housing, and how that density is being raised in some of the residential areas, and also how you know, trees and houses. I mean, we have quite a few neighborhoods that have trees and houses in the same parcel. So we want to make sure that we're not outcompeting those trees or not outcompeting that land for housing. So that balance. Even as practical as making sure we have clearance for garbage truck and emergency personnel, so that the trees aren't inhibiting those uses of the right-of-way. And then incentives for homeowners to keep trees, because trees and houses can be compatible if managed correctly. They can be compatible uses. So the last two are allocation of resources, and that's just making sure those tree funds in the city's tree account. So anytime someone pays a tree permit, it goes aside to a separate fund, and then those funds are spent for tree planting. So how are they spent? Are they being spent? Are they being spent for the purpose? And do we have as many funds as we need for that purpose? Do we have, and just balancing all that out, and then just being aware of the cost the city is putting into even revising the code and making a management plan, and that if we're doing care and maintenance on certain trees, which trees, and are they on our property, or are they in the right of way? Are they all the costs associated with those decisions? And if we're being diligent with that. And then the last one is code compliance. So just making sure that the penalties, or the comment was that penalties should be strong, but fair for violators, so that it's clear what their repercussions are. So I guess this is where I'm going to pause and take out my little notepad and say, does that sound like what you heard? And I want to make sure we have time to address folks in Zoom land as well. So if anyone has comments about, I know.
Okay. I just have a kind of a umbrella question about I don't recollect right off the top of my head if any of our comments that we were hearing, or even from the commission itself while we were initially discussing this, if anything is kind of left to be resolved, or sort of like unresolvable, you know, beyond beyond what the city's able to do right now.
So there were comments that from staff perspective that had not been resolved at the time that we paused the program. So we're starting there.
Okay.
We're starting at those comments and looking again at how the code can be adapted to make that work, and also looking at, one of the pieces will be looking at scenarios, because it is quite complicated, and we want to make sure it works for a variety of different applications, not just what we can see and one style of doing things. I think we're going to have about between 3 and 5 different scenarios we run through that are going to look at how this applies on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
So our understanding is that when it was paused, it was right before adoption.
Yeah.
So it would have been adopted.
Yeah.
Then subsequently 2 years has elapsed, and now we have a new comp plan. So we're going to have to take a look and do a crosswalk to make sure that where we left off
Yeah.
still meets it should, but with some new cross checks.
Right.
Yeah.
And then
Thank
the
you.
city forester has some other additions he wants to add in there. And so we have a few more things to do. I can't pick it up and adopt,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
Yeah.
pick it up and sort of see where we are and do some cleanup.
Iron some wrinkles out. Sounds
Yeah.
like a lot.
But
Yeah.
but the drafts were really far along.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and had been through significant review already.
Right.
So just a couple things to double check and just make sure really work on the ground.
Well, and I think checking to make sure that in the last couple of years, did stuff not update for, tree species that we don't want along roadways, that are overgrowing, that are popping sidewalks, and now it's up to residents to take care of it, or HOAs to take care of it. That's just something I want us to make sure that whatever tree species we are planting are the proper ones. Then what are we going to do going back to those old species that are not proper, that are destroying the roadways and houses and everything like that, sidewalks?
Mm-hmm.
So that's something I really want to make sure we pay attention to, because, down where I live, we had a brand new road put in and then immediately destroyed by tree roots. And we had to go back and get it repaved. So that's added cost to the city. So I just want to make that point.
what I recorded is, what do we do with trees that aren't in the right place, essentially? So one of
Species as well, yeah.
Sort of a combo of the balance question, but also
Yep.
allocation of resources.
Yep.
So,
And
yeah.
taking action now rather than waiting too long.
Yeah.
And that tree fund you were talking about, making sure that there's enough money set aside that we can go out and scope out all these trees. We should know what the issue trees are, and we need to be taking action on that immediately so they don't get bigger.
Right tree, right location,
Right tree, right
length of
place,
time.
yeah.
Right.
Right length of time.
Yeah.
Together. They can
Exactly.
outgrow their,
Right.
Yeah, and we should be planting trees that can be there hopefully for the life of the tree.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Indeed.
species that are not the same all the way down, so if one gets an issue, it passes it all the way through. So I just haven't read through this whole thing yet, because this was before my time, but
Yeah.
that's where my mind goes.
The urban forest management plan, the whole theme around it, I think this was what Alyssa was going to say, but the main idea is that we are focusing on the right tree in the right place. And one of the pieces of that is the right tree will live for the right amount of time in the right place. So it is it is a consideration of the lifespan of that tree because of the species.
And we've
And I
made
know that
some
will-
efforts recently on changing the approved street tree list, which we could do administratively while we waited for this code to pop back up on work plans. Our urban forester is very attentive to diversity, to disease, to homeowner and homeowners associations issues. This is something that he is constantly thinking about and will definitely be incorporated as a through line in all three codes in the street tree plan.
Thank you.
Great.
And he's integrally woven into this, into our action team to make these code developments happen.
Yes.
I'd like to just make a kind of another point on the balance question, balance of uses, vegetation and other uses, and kind of two things come to mind, and I just don't remember where we left it last time. So, and one of them has to do with, say, smaller scale power generation, people putting solar on their roofs, or even little windmill thingies, as one thing, and the shade then obviously precluding the solar function to maybe even the wind function a little bit, and, you know, having the city code somehow address some of those kinds of issues. And then also kind of the dovetail between certain types of vegetation, trees even, are handy for urban agriculture. Fruit trees, for example. They can also be nuisances if they aren't properly cared for, you know, the fruit spoiling and so on. But you know, how do we balance that kind of right tree, right place where we're helping produce food?
I can note that there was language in the last draft that I saw of 16.08 to the point of small scale solar and potential conflicts with tree retention. And I remember being happy with it, but that's not to say that I would be happy with it today, but I feel like I would. And in terms of fruit trees, that's another part of the urban forestry management plan. So a lot of the comments tonight have been things that are guiding from the adopted documents, which is great. I'm glad that there's still things that the community cares about and is top of mind.
Great, thank you. That's good.
So the anticipated timeline, it seems a little bit broad, but we're at the very beginning of a project, and we want to make sure there's room enough to adapt as we go through. But the goal, and it is ambitious, but we'd like to get the code adopted by November 2026. So that gives us about 11 months. And just as I would like to toot our horn just ever so tiny, a little bit. We started digging in November, and we were able to get an RFP out the door already. And so it was published on, I believe the 7th. Published on the 7th, and we'll close the RFP on the 21st. So if you know of any contractors that would like to work with us to develop these codes, if they're particularly great at code writing and also have some urban forestry background, that is the sweet spot of what we need, and it is all in the RFP about what we're looking for and what deliverables are going to be requested.
We're not putting that on you. Already.
No. It's out there. It's, yeah.
Happen to know.
Great. And so moving forward, I just want to give you a small taste of like maybe when you'll see us again for this. We wanted to let you know RFP's out, we started the work, and when we plan to finish it. But then also, we're going to do some robust internal review on the first draft that we get from the consultant. And then we'll move into our public review with a public-facing draft. And that will be when we meet with you. We're planning joint sessions with the Planning Commission and the Tree Board. So both groups will get to come together and discuss. Then we're also planning a tour, because so much of this relies on how it looks and how it works on the ground. We wanted you guys to have that level of ground truthing and being out in the community. So we're already working with Brian for a couple of key areas that he's seen where, you know, this is really going to make an impact in our community. So that's great.
Sorry, so Dennis, so one of our planning commission, we were just talking earlier, one of our planning commission meetings came on a Tuesday in June.
Yeah.
When that sold spot.
Okay.
Go out with the council.
Be a field
Perfect.
trip.
Yeah.
With council and maybe tree board too?
Yeah.
or-
Both, yes.
We
Yeah.
like those field trips.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
We'll just notice it as a public meeting and
Yep.
do the
Right.
thing.
Accommodate anybody who wants to come. and
We hop in the
Yeah.
vans and go.
You bet. Yeah.
Totally cool. Yeah.
Any questions about that tour? We'll get you a date as soon as possible so we can mark it on the calendars and keep it blocked off. And so as many people that can attend as possible.
This is kind of like high interest to the community, so we expect to see a lot of public involvement. That's why we're having more than just the adoption process.
Yeah.
It's like, you'll have an opportunity to look at multiple drafts.
Okay.
Well, and we had really good involvement
We did.
for the housing plan.
Yeah.
So that was really good, getting the community out there with us and
Mhm.
council, and that was a really good tour. Actually, all
Yeah.
of them have been great, and then going and seeing them, yeah, so I'm excited.
Yeah.
We'll have a lot of people.
Mr. Nelson?
Maybe I missed this in your presentation, and if so, I apologize. But is the tree board involved in all of your work all the way along?
Yes. They're involved. We have 2 joint meetings with them, and we want to be really respectful of your time. So we're meeting when we have deliverables from the consultant that are complete and ready for you to review. So we're really focusing your time and asking specific questions about what we want, what kind of review and what comments we're looking for from you.
So when you say our time, you mean this commission
This commission and
and the tree board?
yeah, together.
Yeah, I read a little bit about the role of the tree board and, you know, what has
Yeah.
happened in
Yeah,
historically.
so we'll have at least 2 joint sessions like this, the three people will be joining us.
And then when we go
Playing
through,
the roles, because we
Yeah.
have slightly different roles. They're more
Mhm.
technical advisors.
Mm-hmm.
They're not directing our work, but they're giving like technical input.
Okay,
And you have a different role because you're looking more
the bigger picture.
holistically at this, and then you're the hearing, right, whereas the tree board is. So there's slightly different roles. We'll clarify that when we do the joint sessions. But they aren't like telling us what to do. They're giving us suggestions, and then we have to decide whether to put them in or not. and then
Rather
present to you.
forceful suggestions.
Yeah, so we'll do some role clarification when we get to that joint, different
Okay,
roles.
thank you.
absolutely. And then once we hit the hearing, it will be our role again, because it's rolling into adoption, and we want to make sure it's very clear who is managing that, and that it's a planning commission hearing, and that it passes, and you know, we have notification requirements and we have public comment requirements, so that we're making sure that that's all done in due diligence. So does that answer your question, Commissioner?
Yeah, I did, thank you.
And so then the public review draft will be available around May. We're thinking as you're starting your review, then public draft will be available. And then, you know, we'll make sure to email the stakeholder group. And so any members of the public can add their comments at that point as well. And, you know, help us review this thing and make sure it works for them as well. So you're not alone. We do have eyes out in the public with stakeholder groups as well. I'm hoping Chris will be on that list.
So it's 3 sections of code, tree preservation, is that right? And then.
Oh, sorry, landscaping? Yeah, thank you.
3 sections of code and then street trees. Codes in a plan.
Make up the.
Yeah, and then when it was previously done, there were 2 consultants working on this, and now we're gonna just have 1 consultant, all of it, to get it to be more integrated.
Give me a second. Yeah, and I think one of the big pieces of this is really doing that crosswalk early on, and so you guys can see how this fits in with the other plans, including the new comprehensive plan chapters and the climate element that we just adopted, and making sure that they're all aligned and dovetailed. So walking through that document first, even before we see a draft, is one of the pieces, and then those test cases that we were talking about.
And we still have the webpage, I don't even remember that. There was a webpage that's public facing, we still have that. We'll be using that to update, because we're not gonna have the same robust public involvement like we did, because we already got that input.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're kind of at the later end.
Okay.
And we wouldn't want to redo work. Like, we want to take it where it is because it was so, you know, almost at the tail end and almost complete. So take it from where it is and really just move forward.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Are there any conditions that have changed in that 2 years, environmental conditions that would, and maybe that's what you're going to look at, that would make you think, oh, wait a minute, we thought we got all of this done, but in fact, we had a pretty significant drought.
That's what will become clear as
Windstorms that are more frequent, that kind of thing. Okay.
We're anticipating climate hazards as projected. Nothing significant has changed from those projections in the last 2 years.
Okay. Thanks, Alyssa. Okay. And you preempted me. You're already going with questions, so that's awesome.
Very
Any
good.
further questions?
I don't think so. Let me just check folks online. Commissioners Kotek or Edwards, have you got questions for Dana?
I don't have any questions. Yes, same here. No questions from me.
Thank you. All righty. Thanks, Dana.
Then you can reach us through the normal channels if you, this is part of your packet, so feel free to reach out anytime you have questions. Thank you. I'll pass this over to Erica.
Let's then move to our item number 9, the 2020 Development Code periodic update, and that'll be Erica.
All right. Thank you, Chair Robbins, and good evening, everyone. I hope you're having a great start of your new year. To kick off our first meeting of 2026, I will be presenting on the 2026 Development Code update. As part of this evening's discussion, we're going to do a little bit of background, and at a high level, we're going to go over some of the code amendment topics, and then we're going to talk about proposed, the required review criteria, and then our proposed timeline. In December of 2025, not too long ago, we adopted our first set of state required code updates, primarily regarding our middle housing requirements. There were some other related housing topics. And now we are required by June 30th, 2026 to complete our second round of code updates. This is a very high level. Staff determined to group the code updates in 3 groups. Group number 1 is the group of codes that are required by June of 2026. These are state required commerce checklist and based off of legislation and RCWs and WACs. We're going to go more into detail about these topics, but again, it is such a high level because we're at the very beginning stages of this code update. Starting with House Bill 1042, amended in 2025, we're going to amend our code to address reuse of existing buildings for housing. This allows reuse of existing commercial, industrial, and institutional buildings for housing. It will allow up to a 50% density increase in zoning that allows for multifamily units. And there are some specific standards for design, energy code requirements, and parking. Primarily, we cannot require extensive design review or updates to the facade of a structure when they're doing internal remodeling. Energy code requirements wouldn't apply to the non-residential portion if they're doing a mixed-use proposal. And parking requirements They are able to retain the existing parking, and we are not able to require additional parking.
Erica, if you're
Yes?
sharing your screens, we can't see them online. If you're putting something up there,
Oh,
we can't see it. Sorry to bother you, but I can't see what you're
oh, thank
presenting.
you
I'm
so much.
sorry.
No, thank you. I apologize.
These are all part of the missing middle housing
Yeah.
code, and we did the first batch in
Yeah.
December, and this is like,
Okay.
All right. You should be able to share the see the screen now. I hope you can. Can you please confirm?
Yep, I can see it. Thank you so much. I can see it too.
Wonderful. I apologize. You missed some pretty great photos. Probably seen them before. So yeah, I just gave a quick list of the topics, but then we're going to go through. I just kind of gave information on the reuse of existing buildings for housing. And then there was also another bill, House Bill 1183, that was passed in 2025. This also addresses reuse of existing buildings and existing structures, more flexibility for housing production. This further helps incentivize and make it easier to produce housing in existing structures. It allows flexibilities in the setbacks, the heights, and the gross floor area requirements when converting existing buildings. So minimum dwelling unit size within a structure. Again, addressing parking and affordable housing size requirements. It has limitations on minimum size of units when it's affordable housing. It also allows the increased density in the multifamily zoning, and again, really limiting our ability to require design and exterior appearance updates.
Erica, can I stop you there? Recently, just kind of by happenstance, I happened to see that Governor Ferguson was promoting some new legislation around using commercial housing, maybe other existing types of structures too. And so I'm wondering, I don't know the nature of that legislation. I don't know that it had a bill at all, Senator House attached yet. But I'm wondering, is there more coming and this will have to be maybe revisited, redone? We can't.
Actually, when they pass the bill, it's up to us to stay on top of it, to review.
Okay.
We have an annual amendment cycle, and that's part of our job, is to stay on top of the legislation that's passed to make sure we're in compliance. This is a part of our comprehensive plan update. There is a development code update portion of the comprehensive plan update. Commerce has provided us a checklist, and there was legislation passed 2023 to 2026, and we're addressing those topics. The state is usually pretty good about giving us a due by date for some of these topics, especially housing, because that is such a hot topic in the state. So it's a good question.
But it just seems like this is pretty comprehensive, so I was like, what else could they come up with?
We get updates every year because things are changing and we have.
Okay.
I have a quick question. Is the city going to identify buildings that are in the city that would benefit from this, or basically grade, like this building would be a 10 because it meets all the requirements, or this would be a great building to do this in, and this would be a 1 because there's not really, or there's large buildings that aren't being used by workers anymore, and we would like to incentivize people to go and restructure them into housing?
Well, the city is not a developer, and I don't think we have the capacity. Also, we have to make sure we're not having incidental take of property. It is mostly led by the private sector. I do know, part of our work plans through the city council, we have our eyes on the WashDOT site off of Capitol Boulevard, redevelopment of that site, and then also doing an environmental impact analysis of the old brewery site, looking at zoning, looking at potential, what could be the reuse of those specific properties. But really, it is a private developer, private market, and it's not something the city would necessarily do. But if there is questions, if there's a property, our staff are always open to assisting, doing site feasibility, that sort of thing. With these code updates, and the building department's going to be involved as well, we're going to have to take a look at some of the building requirements. So
basically make sure that we get it out to our community. If you're planning on developing and building something, come to the city and ask questions.
Well, and we also have to consider these structures are expensive, these multifamily developments, and it's not going to be your typical housing developer who's going to buy these properties and redevelop. So I'm sure it would require extensive meetings with the city and feasibility studies and meetings to discuss the permitting process.
Well, the reason I bring it up is because Lacey did this nice holiday light display, and right around there are old, I can't remember what type of buildings they were, but they've all been converted into either housing or restaurants or I think a gym, and it's a very nice community that they have set up now. And seeing that, it was kind of like, wow, it would be great to see that here if we have larger buildings, but do people really know, or are they leased buildings, or are the owners just, so there's a lot of questions in my mind, like how do we get to that state? Did Lacey do something different, or did they just get lucky because the developer is like, I'm gonna do that?
They may have changed their underlying zoning if it had been residential, and then they allowed it to be mixed use or commercial. So that's different.
Yeah, it feels like it went from mixed use commercial to residential with some mixed use commercial, because it's like we need more residential.
Yeah.
So it was really nice to see.
Yeah. These are, seem to be more aimed at new applications coming in. It requires the city to relax some of the parking and signs so that it's all, forward. Like,
not back.
It's more geared towards development code, but that is something to consider when we're talking about our sub-area plans, our economic development plan, updating that, seeing how we can attract or what we might want to see in a specific area based on utilities, infrastructure, and stuff like that. Not necessarily related to our code update, but it is things to consider when we're looking at our specific plans that we have in areas of the city, especially mixed-use development, like Sharon was saying. So, yeah, that's good feedback. Oh, right. Another part of this development code update, it's not necessarily a development code, but we are reviewing our impact fees. Senate Bill 5258 is requiring updates to our impact fees for smaller middle housing. Smaller housing has less impact, therefore they should have proportionate impact fees. It also requires jurisdictions to document the methodology or how we came up with those impact fees, the calculations for the smaller units. We kind of got to show our work here. We have to justify those reductions. And then we will take a look and make sure impact fees for our low income and emergency housing meets the RCW requirements revised in 2023. And then we also need to take a look at reduced impact fees for early learning development centers. There was some language in the bill passed there, and we're going to take a look at it. It's been a while since it's last been updated, and also our fee schedules and analysis for those impact fees, specifically traffic, they change with the different manuals that get published. So taking a look at those.
So we're talking specifically about traffic and park. So we'll be doing the traffic impact fees in June, and then the parks will come later in the year because we're going to be doing a parks plan, the comp plan elements. One that parks and economics, the two comp plan elements that were done last year. So when we do the parks plan, they will also come back with the park fee that's also proportional.
Yeah, thank you, Sharon. We have consultants for the transportation plan that are going to assist us with the transportation impact fees. And then, yes, as Sharon was saying, part of the parks plan they're going to be taking a look at their impact fees as well, because typically development has school impact fees, traffic impact fees, and park impact fees.
Erica, is are early learning facilities the same thing as childcare centers? Okay. And so, like on the other end of that lifespan, there's elder care of one kind or another. Is there something similar in this bill for those reduction of impact fee
Those housing types
for elder care?
Yeah, not necessarily, unless there was some sort of affordability element to it, or if it was middle housing types, because there is development for an age-specific demographic. So if they wanted to come in with middle housing, they would have reduced impact fees for that. If it's an affordable housing development, they would have reduced impact fees for that. It depends on how they come in and apply and what type of housing it is.
Okay. But they're not called out specifically.
The bill didn't call that out.
Yeah. Good question. Another, so RCW 8202.060 and 8202.090 also provided language around impact fees for low-income and emergency housing. There are exemptions for those housing types, and it updates the definitions related to those housing types, and it allows us to adopt or revise our impact fee schedule to implement those exemptions. So we have some flexibility with this one, but still we're going to take a look through the analysis for both the traffic and parks.
Erica? Yes. When you say impact fees, where does that money go? Is there a fund that is put into? Okay. And that fund is used?
Traffic would be for street improvement.
Okay.
And then the parks would be for park improvement. So it goes into a fund. They're earmarked.
And and codes are very specific about how they can be spent. Very, very specific. It's in Title III.
Yep, Title III of our code.
Will these, is there any prediction on if that's going to result in overall decrease of funds coming into that, or?
Well, it will, because it's proportionately lower than single family.
I was wondering.
But it is based on the impact to the system. And that's
However, if there's more of these types of housing that are built,
packing more on any given unit of land.
The overall goal is to address the housing needs, because we are in a housing crisis. And I think it is to help with the incentivizing of these different housing types, and to help the private sector with proposing these housing types.
Is there a comparison between the three municipalities, Lacey, Olympia, and Tumwater, around impact fees? Is one community charging more than another?
Yeah, part of the analysis, depending, because we have consultants helping us with this and calculating and doing,
putting together the impact fees for transportation, anyway, start with the project list, and it's the same project list that we agreed upon with the transportation plan. That's why the plan has to come first, even for the parks plan. Plan has to come first, because we have to have that project list. What do we need to do in the next 20 years? And that's how you build out that fee. So you look at what those projects cost, and then you work with the potential incoming grants and the other allocations and funds that may be coming in, and then work on how to make that number something that is workable for the city.
And perhaps realistic enough that you're attracting developers rather than them going to other locations.
There is a piece of that we need to consider.
And that will all be analyzed. Bullet number 2 says we have to document the methodology, so there will be the science behind it, and the calculations as part of that. And hopefully through, our work with the consultants, we're going to be addressing that. Something else to consider is middle housing. Density increases. It might be smaller units, smaller impact fees, but there might be more units. So I'm not saying I'm doing the analysis, and that might not be, don't fact check me on that. That's just something to consider as well.
Well, and when we look at the impact fee table, it is per unit. So a multifamily building may have 6 units in it. And so whatever the fee is, so if it's multiplied by 6, then that development, it is going to be a greater. So,
and I don't want to belabor this, but I do want to go back to, was it you, Elizabeth, that asked the question about the city taking a leadership in development, or was it Brandon? I'm not sure. But when I think about the role of the city, I realize there are many lines. You have to be careful that you're not crossing. But I think if collaboration is looked at as one of the key words with the community, and being able to hold meetings where developers are invited in, and these are the opportunities that are here in Tumwater, I don't know if that would cross the line or not. Okay.
It is.
Builder association.
Yeah.
Builders association.
Yeah. Yeah.
Part of my scope of work, I have identified reaching out to our core housing stakeholder work group.
Great.
We had, Chris is a part of that, and I will include them on this round of updates. The last updates we did was kind of hectic because the bill was passed in June and we had until December. We know that this is coming. We're a little more prepared this time around. We have a team of staff helping with these code updates. And yeah, part of our scope of work and our public outreach is making sure that when we go out for our hearing, for our briefings and stuff, our stakeholder list is notified.
Great. Thank you.
I also could just add that the state is very prescriptive about how we calculate the impact fees. So for the traffic impact fees, we can only use the number of trips generated, because the single, an ADU is going to have proportionally smaller number of trips generated than potentially a single family house, which can hold more people. So it's very prescriptive about how we set that proportionality. Parks is different. I forgot what the indicator.
It's based on square foot.
Square foot.
Yeah,
So,
it could be based on square foot, or if they have use metrics, I believe they can use those as well.
well,
So it's a little hard to manipulate it.
Yeah, but so while you're generating less revenue through the impact fee, it's proportionate to the use.
Right.
Yeah.
Fairness.
Yeah, thank you for the support. Dana and Sharon are working on the 2 plans and with the consultant, and it's going to really help with this development code update.
It's exciting, you guys.
All right. Another topic is the essential public facilities. Second engrossed State Senate Bill 5536. Part of the requirements of this are to update the definition of essential public facilities to include opioid treatment programs, mobile or fixed site medication units, recovery residences, harm reduction programs, and then it also requires these facilities to follow the same permitting process as other essential public facilities. That could be hospitals, schools, other essential public facilities. So we're updating the definition to include these uses. Also part of this update, we need to review the use of lands adjacent to our natural resource lands. I know through the comprehensive plan update, we talked about natural resource lands through the conservation element. And they've updated the revised Code of Washington to basically ensure that jurisdictions are limiting conflicts between development that is adjacent to natural resource lands. What we really want to do is ensure that we're not proposing single-family residential or residential development right next to mining activity. Those are incompatible uses, so we need to review our code for that, and if so, and make sure that our buffers, our setbacks, and other things help with the compatibility if proposed. This ensures that those designated resource lands can continue operations and there's no contraindications to the proposed use next to it.
Does that tie into airports at all?
Not really.
That's not a natural resource land.
Mostly when you're
Well-
bringing in the urban land in the urban growth area where you had maybe farmland,
Gotcha,
and now
gotcha.
you're becoming
Net-
rural,
yeah.
not urban,
Okay.
so then you've got this farm.
A natural resource land like, I mean, the pocket gophers and stuff like that.
It's more timber
Critical.
use.
Okay,
It's more
thank you for clarifying.
mining, excavation.
Yeah.
That's,
We don't have to
That
worry
rural
about
urban interface, when you're starting to bring the rural land in.
Mhm, yeah.
You have cows over here and across the street in the apartment, which you have to.
it. Oh, yeah, yeah, okay.
Black Hills High School.
Yeah.
Because you can't not allow the
Cow by
cows,
high.
right? There's a right farm.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right, I know you can't see it, maybe I can look up my notes here. Okay, another topic we're gonna review is the highways of statewide significance. State highways and associated projects are exempt for our transportation concurrency requirements, and it clarifies that WashDOT, not the city, is responsible for managing capacity and mobility for projects related on the interstate.
I think there's still a requirement, correct me if I'm wrong, though, that the city, any city planning under GMA, still has to tell WashDOT what the effect of the city's decisions are, right? So that, and WashDOT goes off and finds the money to make improvements and things.
I'm not quite sure. I don't want to say I know. This is a very high level. I'm sure, well, it's going to be required that when we start doing the update, we're going to have to look up the RCWs, do a little more of a gap analysis and a deeper dive. But that is a good comment. Maybe are you asking, like, they still have to come in to get a permit?
No, there's two things. One is that not all highways in the state are highways of statewide significance. There's only two in our area, I-5 and 101.
Yeah.
So what is it, 121 down there is not that. So the city would still be potentially on the hook, or maybe the county would still be on the hook if they're impacting, if a land use decision made by the jurisdiction impacts that state highway, they still are on the hook to fix it. Not so for highways of statewide significance, but the city still has to say, well, there's going to be all this development over here that's going to generate all this traffic, so that then WashDOT goes off to the state legislature to say, hey, this is going to increase demand over the next, whatever time period, give us the money to build another lane or whatever. So it's not the city's responsibility to fix it, but it is the city's responsibility to tell them what the impact would be.
I don't know, maybe Sharon, correct me if you know, but I'm sure there's going to be a SEPA regulation or a SEPA review, a notification process, an environmental impact review. They're gonna, because they are an agency and because it is a project.
Right. I mean, that's been on the books since the 90s, so.
Yeah. So something I might need to bring in transportation, the transportation department on. All right, speaking of SEPA, we have, so the Department of Ecology amended their regulations for SEPA exemptions in 2023. This authorizes, they've basically raised their SEPA categorical exemptions for housing in the urban growth areas. Prior to 2023, there was a cap. So what projects were exempt from SEPA? For instance, if you wanted to build 6 houses, that was exempt from a SEPA review. You still had to meet the critical areas ordinance and other development regulations, but anything over 6 would trigger that SEPA permit review process. But in 2023, the Department of Ecology raised those exemption threshold levels. There is no specific number for the jurisdictions have flexibility because they can basically choose the number. They don't have to adopt the maximum exemption level. There is some flexibility. So staff will work collaboratively. I think our main primary, what we want to address is the exemption for single-family residences and also update our language and definitions to include attached dwellings in the different middle housing types for those SEPA exemptions and make sure our SEPA exemptions are clear for those housing types.
Yeah, this is a concern for the tribes, because the primary way that they find out when there's gonna be shovels in the ground is through the SEPA, because we are not allowed to require notice of application for all these, so they're relying on this, but they're not happy. Because this raises the threshold for the things that they don't, how are we gonna let them know without the SEPA, which used to kick in down there?
Right.
That's the problem.
Right.
So we have to meet the state regulations, so we had to figure out a way to work with the tribes.
Right.
That's a pickle. That's
Yeah.
something we have an easy answer for.
I don't have the exemption thresholds memorized, but we're talking more than like 15 houses, like a single family development or something with even apartments over like 40 units.
Is this like Greenland development as opposed to like existing?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, that's a good question. I'm gonna make a note about that. But we'll definitely take a look. I think existing might have different permitting requirements versus new construction, but that's a great comment or question, because that's something we would definitely want to clarify through this update process. Does it apply to
All of it, but.
new and existing, or just new?
Yeah.
I'd have to take a look at the permitting process for that. All right, so our second bucket of code updates, these are state required code amendments, but they're not required by June 2026. But as we know, going through the last update process, the adoption process is pretty intensive. And so if staff can, we want to include these updates, because we know eventually they might not be required by 2026, but they will be required eventually. So if we can get it as part of this package, I think it would be, we're going to try to do that.
Either June or November. So.
Yeah.
Try to get this in.
Yeah. And part of this is going to be the unit lot subdivisions, and then there is legislation around child care centers. Unit lot subdivisions. I want to make sure I have my notes on this one. So a unit lot subdivision is a method of dividing a parcel, what we call a parent parcel, into individual unit lots that may be sold to individual owners. In contrast, a subdivision or a short plat process creates lots that are more of sufficient area and dimension to meet the minimum zoning requirements. Unit lot subdivisions do not need to meet the the lot size of the underlying zoning district. So for a single family medium zoning, the minimum lot size might be 20,000 square feet. Those standards would not apply to a unit lot subdivision as long as that parent parcel, the original starting parcel, meets the minimum and design, or the minimum lot requirements for that underlying zoning. Any questions on that? I know that might have been a little confusing. Yeah, I have an example of a unit lot subdivision on the next slide. It kind of might help us picture what that actually means.
Kind of wondering, I don't know exactly how to word this, but the kind of the conversion of the parent lot, the initial thing, like we mostly have right now. I don't think there's been too much of these kinds of subdivisions yet. Or maybe that's the wrong word, but we don't have a whole lot of this kind of development yet. Oh, okay, maybe we do. But so as those come on more and more, and now they're individually fee simple chunks of land with stuff on them, registered as that's a property here and so on. How over time then can those be divided further? Where's this, down the line, where's this going? I guess I would be curious just.
Yeah. Well, before I lose my train of thought, I want to say it's not been allowed before. Yeah. Because we only had the standard subdivision process, and that says if you're creating a new lot, that lot must meet the standards of that underlying zoning.
Yeah.
And so if someone wanted to subdivide their property, they wouldn't be able to unless that lot met all those requirements
Yeah.
through a standard subdivision process. This unit lot subdivision process is to promote home ownership opportunities, and it's more of a concept of a condo.
Yeah.
So you have your shared spaces, but then the person doesn't own the whole property, but they own that unit.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a unit lot subdivision process where someone living in an ADU can purchase that ADU, and it increases homeownership opportunities. But they will be associated with that previous single-family residence that it was accessory to, and there will be common space ownership through this process.
But there are some limits. You can't keep dividing and dividing until it's like just shoehorning things in there.
Yeah, there are questions even internally for staff that we need to address. First off, can you propose a unit lot subdivision if structures aren't already there?
Mm-hmm.
What if they're proposed? What if they're going through the permitting process? We, in the last code update, we allow now up to 4 units per lot outright, but they have to meet the lot standards for that. And it's just, how is this going to come into play with our unit density, unit lot density, and unit lot subdivision? We need to make sure all the pieces work together, and we don't want to exclude the fact that we also have to have the infrastructure,
Mm-hmm.
water,
Yeah.
sewer, the ownership of that, and how do we permit it so it works out. So,
I mean, that's kind of where I was going was, as it, through time, decades from now, after there's been some time for a lot of these to have been developed, and then this pressure to keep packing more, building up, for example. This is all considered like one level, it looks like, on the wrong page, but so a lot of, one-story type stuff. But, at what point do you really condoize multi-story and each one owns, whatever for 99 years or something, and then, but you're packing more demand for infrastructure, the roads, the sewer, the water, the electricity, blah.
mm-hmm.
So,
Well, if it's a proposed condo, if I'm understanding you correctly, it's already built to be like that. The model, the homeownership model, it is a condo, and that is a homeownership model.
uh-huh.
This is more geared towards, we have a single-family residence, and then there's a triplex in the back. If someone can meet that.
Less that than just sheer numbers.
There's still height limitations. You can't put a 5-story
You cannot.
Yeah. Oh, no.
townhouse behind your house. There's still height limits.
The structure has to be permittable. That type of housing has to be allowed in that zoning.
Okay.
So it still has to meet some requirements. It's just the subdivision process
Yeah,
and the opportunity to own that unit that is changing.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It's just, it'll be an interesting thing. Maybe I won't be around to observe it or whatever, but it just seems like, looking at the way that, other towns and cities around the world have developed through time, sometimes over centuries, it's just more compact and higher.
But that
It's
comes
really
with tear
crammed down.
downs and other things. 'Cause
Some, or just, the,
house isn't now
depending on the-
feasible, or-
depending on the place,
Yeah.
and let's hope we don't go there in this country, but, just some of them are just like, pretty haphazard. And not to say that the city is prepared to go that route, but, you're talking about down the line, there might be additional changes to allow greater than 1-story or 2-story. You're packing more people, more families in a particular unit of.
Yeah. We still have building code requirements.
Yeah.
Washington is one of the most strict states with
Yeah.
building code, energy code, and
Right.
I feel like our buildings have to be fairly compliant,
So far.
Yeah, so far. And I wanted to be respectful. I saw Mr. Nelson's hand up.
It's related but different. So this common area, there's common area in the neighborhood I live in that has an HOA.
Right.
People have different ideas of how they can put things in common areas. Has that governance issue or cooperation issue been addressed in any of this complex housing?
I don't know for certain because I don't have the plat requirements. What was required at the time of recording and through that subdivision process, but typically through the standard subdivision process, there are open space requirements. And certain jurisdictions, I'm not familiar with our code specifically, but they do have allowed uses within that space and what could be allowed in the open space requirement. And I do know some open space is also multi-purpose, such as like retention ponds and stormwater treatment as well. So I think it really depends on what was required at the time of permitting and when it was recorded, and usually plat maps would have that kind of information on it. But
as I see the density growing, I also see potential conflict growing. And so I think it's really important that somebody somewhere start thinking about this. Because this is an individual homeowner who's decided to do something different in their lot. And
This is something we did kind of bring up before. If I'm going to throw 3 houses basically in my backyard, what is that going to look like fence-wise? And I mean, combination-wise, because as a single-family homeowner, you're not used to having someone that much in your space necessarily. And what will that look like? Because when you look here, you see the unit lot, but you don't see, I guess there's an alley in the back, but if there's not an alley in the back.
The neighbor?
Yeah.
You can't see the neighbor's property?
Oh, it's just,
next door.
it is a good thing to bring up and just keep in mind of, this doesn't just affect that now. I mean, it affects your police force, it affects your, all these different pieces.
Yes. All great comments, and it is something that staff are tracking, and we need to bring in other departments, you know, emergency services as well. The tough thing is when the bill or the state says thou
Sure.
you shall, but the thing also I have to remind myself is we just allow for it. Doesn't mean it is going to happen. It is up to the individual property owner and whether they want to invest in building that type of housing. And, you know, it is something we're going to adopt the code, state requirements. We got to meet state requirements. I will use you guys as a soundboard to, does it make sense? Is it clear? And to remind us of these questions. And, you know, we'll do what we can, but that is something to consider too, is it is up to the private property owner to do a proposal like this. So.
Something I will say is in feedback from last year was, how do we get ahead of these things? And it's kind of hard when we just see these bills just, here you go, here it is, and we predicted wrong and went down this other path. So I see why we do it the way we do it. However, also thinking of these things and how do we try to maintain a step or two ahead of it? And how do we think of Tumwater in the next 50, 100 years, past our plan? And try to kind of like, okay, what is it going to look like? And yeah, it will be going up at some point, but how much of that can we do today versus how much of that do we do in the future? And what does technology do to eliminate the need for, I don't know, sewers or all sorts of different things? I mean, we might see something different. Who knows?
That one I have a hard time with.
That's going to be really tough.
Composting toilets are on their way.
I will say that was part of the fun part of the housing element update, because that's where we really got to talk about our goals. We worked with the private sector, we worked with our community, and that's where we got to, that was the opportunity to like, what does Tumwater want housing to look like? How does the future, because we're planning 20 years out. Legislature is on a yearly basis, right? So that was our opportunity to plan 20 years in advance, and that would have been the opportune moment to provide staff kind of the vision at the time of the update. I think we wrote our housing element to be flexible, to be able to change. That's why we have the draft implementation actions, because they're draft and we can update them. So we are thinking ahead. We are ahead of the game. We are on it. So, you know, there's there's opportunity, maybe not right now with this code update because it is, again, by June, and it is rushed.
Here you go, do this.
Yeah, that's right.
But we're going to keep working with the community, with our stakeholders. We're going to hear, we have the amendment cycle annually to do code updates. And yeah, change is the only constant. Yeah, so.
Well, this, you know, Sharon and I had a little conversation, whenever that was. Yesterday. And one of the things was kind of monitoring we talked about and seeing how these things are playing out.
Mm-hmm.
And how they're doing. Do we need a course change? Do we need to push back on legislation if it's not serving our interests? If the one size fits all that the state bungs into our court it aren't working. So that's going to be a key element, and it's got to, you know, it's got to be kind of a lasting thing.
Well, and how do we get that feedback loop as the commission of if these things start to happen, you start seeing them?
Yeah.
We would love to hear about it and be like, okay, but like hot off the press.
This is the Association of Washington Cities, like that's where like cities are starting to have all kinds of trouble, like you're saying. And there'll be some organized like lobbying to like change.
Correct. Or maybe it's going to work really well, but who knows, you know? But you know, but being able to really keep that observation going.
Yeah. I think one of the things as our advisory board that you can do is from your own vantage point, what would it feel like and what would it look like to have this in your neighborhood?
Mm-hmm.
We can get to the point where we're thinking about this now for our neighborhood. And what would you as a neighbor like to see? Is there anything you would like to see your neighbor do that might improve that situation for you?
For me, it's how does that look in somebody's backyard or side yard or whatever. And
is there something
I've seen, it looks really nice. Or the ADUs out front, which is one of the ones that we drove by. If it's in the backyard, how is fencing utilized in other pieces? How are trees utilized to kind of accentuate different pieces? That's what I would like to see.
Yeah. And I'm not an expert. I don't work in the private development sector. But as an individual homeowner to propose a triplex in the backyard, I don't know if financially that is feasible. I imagine a lot of these proposals are going to be with new developments. And so it would be buyer beware. You know what's going in around you. You know, like this is the style, this is the community, this is the development type.
Right.
But you know, with all these, they still have to work with our other sections of code. And so there are still other requirements other than the zoning and the allowed housing types that will come into play. We have impervious surface. Sometimes we can allow exemptions for setbacks on certain housing types and infill development, but for the most part, they still have to meet requirements that might, on the average lot, they won't be able to meet those requirements.
I think it would also be a big kind of shift in mindset too, right? Because it has to be something that people would want to buy, right? If that's the whole kind of purpose of doing some of this stuff is getting things that we want to actually purchase, it has to be something that would be pleasing, right? And I think a big shift in the mindset of, I think people are kind of okay renting and having communal areas or communal, you know, neighbors like right on top of each other or something like that in that kind of enclosed space. I think that that's kind of a mindset that people have. But in terms of like, I'm going to pay, you know, $300,000, $500,000, and I don't really know I don't have any guarantee about who my neighbors are going to be, and they're right here, right? It has to kind of be set up in a way that people would be okay with that and actually want to kind of go through with purchasing them.
Definitely has to pencil.
That's a good factor.
I think that's a really good point. And also, there's no guarantee once somebody buys, you know, if this were to happen, somebody buys something, they could rent it out.
Yeah.
There wouldn't be any guarantee. So it's not, even though the purported objective of the legislation was to increase home ownership, somebody's going to own it, but it may not be the person living there.
Yeah.
And I'll say from my own experience, while maybe not exactly this kind of situation, there was a pretty sizable development behind my property, and you know, they're not especially attractive. They didn't put in screening, didn't put in fences. There's way more traffic. There's, you know, the cops are back there all the time.
And as I
So, yeah,
mentioned, because this has to dovetail with existing code.
right.
I don't think we have landscaping codes for residential
Yeah.
properties the way we do for commercial.
Right.
Like what you can do on your landscaping and screening, and we
Right.
don't
Right,
regulate that.
right, right.
An HOA does.
The HOA could, yeah.
Yeah, I think there might have been some special, in that particular instance, there might have been some special negotiations. But nevertheless, I mean, you know, there's things that are sort of, they're not exactly those things of, you know, kind of the physical aspects, are kind of that more social kind of aspects. And that's to, you know, Commissioner Edwards' point about, is that attractive to be in, to
Right.
spend money on?
Yeah.
Well, you notice apartment buildings and people encroach on each other's spaces, right?
Right,
There's
Right.
just people that do that.
right,
And then condos, the same thing can happen. But in both places, there is an authority somewhere that says, this is your space, pull your stuff back.
Mhm.
I think it's a pretty considerable oversight that to create shaded areas, and it's just kind of like the Wild West here. Whatever these 6 people are,
Mhm.
they may or may not get along.
Yeah.
There may be increased police activity, and it's probably worth having a conversation with a legislator about.
yeah.
I don't know what the solution is necessarily. And like you said, this may not ever really come to fruition. You've got to have a big enough lot to do this, you know? A lot of us don't have a big enough lot to do that.
And financially, it is quite expensive to build not just one ADU, but we're talking
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
4 residential units that have to meet energy code, have to pay for utilities and infrastructure. Again, I don't know if it's gonna be the typical homeowner who's gonna be proposing this.
Mhm.
And every comment we've received is super valid, but it's something that staff, and I wanna remind you all of, is we are not allowed to not allow it.
Mhm.
So we have to allow it. And so what that means is if someone chooses to create a buffer, they can do that if it is up to the property owner, but there's limitations on what we can require and what we can regulate.
And then there may be opportunity about what you can
Those requirements and the limitations of what we can require would be valuable.
Yeah.
The cities in the county are trying to see, raw land being developed by property developers with townhouses, attached townhouses, within an ADU on the garage that's trying to be built.
Hmm.
And so that ADU could be.
Unit,
Right.
Wow.
And yeah, the incentive is to promote home ownership, which is, you know, someone
Value.
owning and investing into this structure. It's not necessarily like a rental. And we also want to get away from stigma around, I'm having a stigmatism, sorry.
I have astigmatism.
Yeah, right. The stigma around multifamily development, apartments, because when we talk about, you know, this goes back to the conversation around affordable. Affordable is 30% of a working person's wage. So it is not it is not assisted housing, it is not low-income housing, it's just affordable to the working class. So,
I'm excited for this. I've owned a house with an ADU attached to it, and it was great. I had multiple tenants that went through there. I never had an issue, which was very nice. I honestly forgot that they were there. There was additional parking out front, but I think it's a great thing. So I am looking forward to it. I think there are some pieces that could be a little interesting, but until we see it, I would love to know if we start to see it. And we can start to monitor it, because one thing that's challenging with what we do here is we do think 20 years out, we do think so far out in the future. And when things are impacting us today, we might not really know about it necessarily, or we're on to something else and we forget about it.
yeah.
If you see one of these, I want to know.
Yep. And I think staff are excited to see this happen
Yeah.
organically. It's going to take a little bit of time before people catch on and
About it.
yeah, and even for staff, we expect revisions, we expect clarification needed, and it will be a process, and I'm glad you guys are looking forward to it. All right, we got, I don't know how many more slides. I think we're getting towards the end of it, so hang in there. We also have Senate Bill 5509. This is addressing child care centers. We must allow child care centers as an outright permitted use in all zones except for industrial, and even in those industrial zoning designations, it is a conditional use approval. So it's an extra permitting process, but it is still technically allowed, just with an additional permitting review.
Do child care centers, under either this bill, are they defined as those that are somehow certified or licensed or?
Oh, yes, there's all kinds of regulations.
So is that?
Well, is this licensed or?
Yeah, or is this
unlicensed?
anybody?
There's both.
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm asking. As if somebody just says, you know, puts a sign out in front of their yard and says, I'm a child care center now.
Well, then eventually they'd be in trouble because they have to be licensed if they take other people's children and for pay.
I guess I'm just kind of wondering about what
Up to
the
a
law
certain
says.
amount of hours, you have up to 4
Well,
hours.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
yeah. After 4 hours, yes.
I do believe our code does define, there are different thresholds, I think, for different, how would I say, different brackets or designations of childcare.
Yeah.
I'm not for certain, but that is a great, that's a great comment.
It would be interesting to know if somehow this applies to any child care centers, permitted or not.
They'd still have to go through all the proper channels to.
Well, I guess
get
I'm
either-
interested to know whether the law says that or not.
Yeah, like, so if a Scribbles and Giggles can go next to a housing development or like in the middle, is that kind of like what you're asking? Is there any differentiation between the in-home child care center?
I guess I would be concerned that that the state might be, I don't know this, so that's why I'm asking, what does the law allow? Of, you know, some unlicensed facility getting privileges when, okay, you know what I'm saying? So like suddenly the city has to allow somebody who's not licensed, who has not gone through whatever is required to become licensed, who just sticks a sign out front. And now the city has to allow that in whatever zones.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying?
I'm not for certain, but in my previous professional life, uses that involved something like in-home care or child care usually have to go through labor and industries. They have to get a business license, they have to get approval, especially when we're talking about working with children.
Right.
I would hope that there are some sort of requirements through the Department of Licensing, L&I businesses.
Right.
As far as what we require or proof in the permitting process, I'm not sure. There's also the building code. I think there's requirements for building code as well.
Fire code.
Fire code.
I built several early learning.
It would be good to make sure that comes out whenever we are seeing that, to make sure that that's defined as who gets.
Always have somebody who's illegal.
Enjoy.
Yeah. So there's definitely,
Sorry, I pulled it up. We have a definition of a child daycare center and
Under this bill?
under TNC, it's local code.
Yeah.
It's defined in local code.
so that's what I was talking about. We have different
Okay.
thresholds and definitions for
Okay,
child
so
care.
implementing 5509 must also dovetail with that code that defines. So only those that meet the city code would be able to enjoy.
Unless 5509 specified otherwise.
Yes, I'm trying to find that out.
Okay.
Okay.
We haven't done that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
find out,
You'll
because,
be briefed on this. We'll come back. We'll give you more substantial information. I've made a note here, and we'll kind of make sure to address that comment, and then hopefully be able to report back to you. Okay. Third bracket of code updates. These are not state required, but they are city sponsored. That means staff have contacted us, or we have realized that there are some things that we would like to amend through this cycle, because again, it's easy just to get as much done as we can in one code update and one ordinance if possible. So we had the citywide, let me see, yep, I don't have separate, so these slides, oops, let me go back. These don't have specific slides, but I will give a little bit of overview. Oh, it froze. I am so sorry.
And I'm here
Bear
if you
with
need
me.
me, Erica, for the ones that I'll be working on. I'm here.
Oh, thank you so much.
It's like an invisible hand.
Yeah, I swear I'm not touching it anymore. There's like a ghost. Yeah, thank you, Alyssa. I made sure to look up the definition for data center and battery energy storage systems. But if you would like to, maybe when I'm done presenting the other items, just kind of do a quick overview of those two. So we had the citywide design guidelines. We did update our citywide design guidelines to the 2025 update, and that development code update and ordinance. It was required as part of the middle housing updates. We realized that we also need to update our base maps to match our new zoning designations. And then, Deanna, correct me if I'm wrong, but also our overlays.
Yeah, there are some overlays that need to be updated.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the overlays are only just being not updated in terms of the code.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe there's code changes to the overlays, but
Okay.
I'm not privy to that.
Yeah. So we have some maps we need to update, specifically identified in the design review as well. And then staff have requested that we add definitions for RV and boat storage and a permitting process for that. Apparently, we don't have any sort of reference to that in our code, and it does make it hard when an applicant comes in and proposes something, and it's unclear what the permitting process or what that use might specifically be. And then there is an impact fee study for bicycle and pedestrian facilities. This is primarily, it's my understanding that this is identifying and defining what traffic impact fees can be used for as far as multimodal transportation. And then, Alyssa, if you want to maybe help us with the data centers and the BESS.
Yep, sure. My intention with adding 2 new considerations to zoning code is to adapt to new land uses that are growing really rapidly that our code is not currently set up to deal with, such as data centers, which are sometimes called server farms. There's a lot of them in western or in central Washington and in the King County, Pierce County area. We have one in Thurston County associated with state government, but they are large energy consumers. They have some negative externalities, but they do have some potential economic benefits. So making sure that we are adapting our code to be able to handle such development types and to reduce impacts to our environment and our community that may come with things like data centers. Battery energy storage system is something that Puget Sound Energy has been asking us for some time. We've had a number of applications come across the permit counter, but unfortunately our code does not allow for this currently unless a battery energy storage system is attached to an existing non-depletable energy source, such as solar or wind power. So a grid-tied battery energy storage system that could help with energy resilience is not currently allowed within our code. So that would be updating our code to allow for certain things related to battery energy storage systems so that we can have that kind of development and energy support in our community as well.
Questions, comments?
I have a question on pending applications. Alyssa, you mentioned that you have seen an application for the battery energy storage systems. Have we seen an application come in for data centers?
No.
Okay, but these will come back before the Planning Commission for
yes.
what the code eventually kind of shapes up to be. Okay.
Yes, and I've been working on the data center staff report for when I come to you all day today.
Okay. I guess I would be, you know, in anticipation of that, if you can, when you're working on this at all, if you can find out, I would be interested in understanding how those function in terms of generating tax revenue for the city and anybody else, and what kinds of demands on infrastructure those require, those kinds of pressures.
All be part of what I bring to you with a number of different options for you all to provide direction on if we proceed with these at all, what direction we take with them, different policy options. I'll give you all choose your own adventure guide for both of these in the early stages with research and data to back up why certain things are recommended.
Good deal.
Are you looking at things past battery energy storage systems, other new pieces, hydrogen, other technologies out there to make sure that whatever we do come up with is flexible enough? Or is that something we don't want to deal with right now?
That's a really good concept, and I hope that the way that we're able to craft this together doesn't create obstacles. However, Puget Sound Energy has been waiting for years for us to do this, and I don't want to delay it much further. There may be opportunities when we're reviewing the code that you all see that I don't, that can make it so that it can be more expansive. So I'm not saying no, but I'm focusing on battery energy storage systems right now, but I take direction pretty decently.
Well, thank you. I just wanted to put that in your head so you can't sleep at night.
Any more questions, comments for Alyssa before we move on?
There's one more as a part of the slide. I think it was added to the list after we created the slide deck and got it into your packet. So one of the other pieces is a food system plan.
Yeah.
Requires an update to the local food distribution sites. And we want to prioritize that to be released, to be ready to be adopted with this packet as well.
Gotta send me that.
Yeah, we added it. Anyway, we didn't make it in time for this.
Yeah, but I'll talk a little bit more about it actually for our next meeting, January 27th. We have a small update on how that's going to be laid out and what that looks like. Not specific to that code, but all the implementation items for the food system.
Oh no, it froze again.
Too many times.
I know, it froze again, so we might fly through a few slides. I think it was only 2, so.
Next step.
Yeah.
I can hold this up and wave that.
Yeah. Yeah, so, we are getting towards the end of the presentation here. I just wanted to touch base on, you're right, the review criteria. So code amendments to the development code regulations must be initiated by the Planning Commission. So I'm going to present our proposed amendments to you, and then through you give us the green light to go to council. We also need to ensure that our code amendments are internally and externally consistent with all of our plans. Thank you so much. That includes our comprehensive plan, the countywide planning policies, related plans, and the comprehensive plan of Thurston County. And then I did have a note here to inform the commission that some of the topics discussed tonight might be required by the state, but staff do rely on you for input. And I think we've received quite a bit tonight, so thank you. Really appreciate that. And then, beautiful. Talking about next steps. So January through March, we're going to establish a work group of staff to help support, such as Alyssa, with some of these code topics. And we're going to start doing our initial drafts of the code. And then in April, we are expecting internal review. Does it make sense? Does it work? And making those final changes, fine-tuning. And then because we do have the adoption date of June, as soon as May, we're going to start going through our adoption process with the briefing, with the work session, with our hearing. and then we'll go from city council from there, hopefully. So quick turnaround. It's going to be a lot of go, go, go. Appreciate your time and the input again. And it's been great providing comments tonight. If you have any more and would like to send those to us, we have our department email, and then you can also leave a voicemail if you'd wish. So thank you for your time this evening. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you.
Good discussion, everybody.
Yeah, great.
Let's see. We have our next meeting is going to be on the 27th. We'll have an action item on that. Is that right? Okay. For the preliminary docket. And so it'll be really helpful if everybody can be here one way or another. And other than that, being as how it looks like our business is concluded, I'll adjourn. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Oh, and it's,
Thank you.
what is that? 8:41. Never remember that part. Thanks.
Do I end?